Hey there, my curious friends. Are you ready for a wild ride into the mysterious past? Imagine this. It's 18,000 years ago, and you're standing in a freezing tundra, surrounded by nothing but snow and glaciers. You're about to witness something that'll blow your mind. You see, our ancient ancestors, those guys in furry loincloths and stone tools, are about to chow down on a feast that would make modern-day foodies cringe. Wanna guess what's on the menu? It's not just your average berries and wild game. No, it's something way more shocking than anything you could find at your local fancy restaurant. Are you brave enough to take a peek? Because trust me, what they're about to eat will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about ancient diets. So, buckle up, and let's dive into this crazy culinary adventure together. Back in the day, when our ancestors roamed the earth, their diets were far from boring. Contrary to popular belief that they just survived on a handful of berries and whatever wild beasts they could manage to kill, the truth is, their menus were actually quite diverse. Take the Neanderthals, for example. These guys weren't just caveman stereotypes chomping on raw mammoths. Studies have shown that their diets included a wide variety of plants. In one Neanderthal site in Spain, researchers found evidence of pine nuts, hazelnuts, and even water lilies in their dental plaque. Seems like they enjoyed a little snack mix now and then. Not only that, but they also dabbled in seaweed and moss, showing that they were adventurous eaters who weren't afraid to explore different flavors and textured, and it's not just the Neanderthals. Early humans, like those in the Paleolithic era, had quite the culinary variety as well. In some regions, they feasted on fish and shellfish, as evidenced by the shell middens left behind. They also consumed a range of mammals, from deer and bison to smaller creatures like rabbits. Plus, they didn't shy away from insects either. Beetle grubs and other bugs were likely a protein-rich snack for our ancestors, kinda like their version of protein bars, but a whole lot grosser. It's clear that ancient humans' diets were anything but simple. They were masters of survival, adapting to their environments and making use of whatever edible resources they could find. Whether it was nuts, berries, wild animals, fish, or bugs, they made it work, creating a diverse and, dare I say, interesting menu for themselves. So the next time you think of ancient humans, don't just picture them eating boring old berries and wild animals. Their culinary adventures were way more exciting than that. From the early days of human existence to the later stages, our ancestors' diets underwent significant changes, driven largely by their environments and the tools at their disposal. In the very early days, when humans were just emerging, their diets were heavily reliant on what they could find in their immediate surroundings. They were primarily gatherers, relying on fruits, nuts, roots, and insects for sustenance. This was the era when they had limited tools, so hunting large wild beasts was a risky and difficult endeavor. They lived a nomadic lifestyle, moving from place to place in search of food. As time went on and humans evolved, they began to develop more advanced tools. The invention of stone tools, like sharp flakes and hand axes, made hunting larger wild beasts a more viable option. This led to a shift in their diets, with meat becoming a more significant part. Sites from the Oldowan and Acheulean cultures show evidence of butchery, indicating that these early humans were able to bring down and process larger animals. The controlled use of fire was a game changer for ancient human diets. Around 780,000 years ago, humans started to harness fire, which not only provided warmth and protection, but also allowed them to cook their food. Cooking made food more digestible and nutritious, opening up a whole new world of possibilities. It also killed harmful bacteria and parasites, making their diet safer. As humans settled into more permanent communities and agriculture began to emerge, their diets shifted yet again. They started to cultivate crops like wheat and barley, and domesticate animals like sheep and cows. This led to a more stable and predictable food supply, but also meant a more sedentary lifestyle, and a diet that was less diverse than before. So, from foraging and gathering to hunting, and eventually agriculture, ancient human diets evolved in fascinating ways, shaped by the ever-changing environments and their innovative use of tools and technology. It's a story of adaptation and survival, showing just how resilient and resourceful our ancestors truly were. In the ancient world, insects and small creatures were a staple on the menu for our ancestors. Just like modern-day survival experts like Bear Grylls, who make eating insects look like a daring adventure, ancient humans were no strangers to this protein-packed snack. Back in the days of the Paleolithic era, bugs were a common part of the diet. In Spain, cave paintings from around 30,000 years ago depict ancient humans searching for insects and bee nests, showing that they had a keen eye for these tiny treats. And it's not just ancient art that tells the tale. Scientists studying the remains of Australopithecus, our distant relatives from millions of years ago, found evidence that they, too, enjoyed a meal of termites. Much like the behavior of modern chimpanzees, insects weren't just a quick snack on the go. They were an important source of protein and nutrients. Beetle grubs, with their creamy texture and nutty flavor, were probably a favorite among ancient humans. Imagine a group of early humans gathering around, breaking open logs to reveal a feast of wriggling grubs. Kind of like opening a can of sardines, but fresher and more organic. But it wasn't just insects that ancient humans dabbled in. Small animals like snails were also on the menu. In France, the tradition of eating escargot has a long history, and it's likely that ancient humans in the region enjoyed this slimy delicacy as well. Snails, with their chewy texture and earthy flavor, provided a nice change of pace from the usual insects and wild animal meat. And let's not forget about other small creatures, like lizards and mice. In times of food scarcity, these little guys were a valuable source of sustenance. Just picture a group of ancient humans setting traps and eagerly awaiting their next meal of freshly caught rodents. Kind of like a prehistoric version of a hunting trip, but on a much smaller scale. So the next time you see a bug crawling across your kitchen counter, remember that your ancestor might have seen it as a delicious snack. Ancient humans weren't afraid to get creative with their food choices, and insects and small animals played a significant role in their diets, providing them with the nutrients they needed to survive and thrive in a harsh and unpredictable world. Who knew that bugs and snails could be such an important part of ancient culinary culture? Before we dive into the deliciously weird world of ancient humans' diets, let's talk about their seafood adventures. You might think that fishing and shellfish were a modern luxury, but our ancestors were actually pros at catching and eating aquatic creatures. Let's travel back to the coastal regions of ancient times. Ancient humans living near the water had a veritable seafood buffet at their disposal. Shell middens, those massive piles of discarded shells left behind by ancient societies, are like a time capsule of their aquatic feasts. In places like Yantai, China, these middens are filled with oyster, clam, and mussel shells, showing that ancient humans had a serious love for shellfish. Fishing was also a big part of their lives. While they didn't have fancy fishing rods and reels, they had their own innovative methods. They used sharpened bones and stones to make hooks and spears, and wove intricate nets from plant fibers. Picture a group of ancient humans standing on the shore, casting their homemade fishing lines into the water, eagerly waiting for a catch. The types of fish they ate were diverse as well. In some regions, they feasted on salmon, trout, and other freshwater fish, while coastal communities enjoyed a variety of saltwater fish. These fish provided a rich source of protein and essential fatty acids, making them a crucial part of ancient human diets. And it wasn't just fish and shellfish. Other water creatures like crabs and lobsters were also on the menu. Ancient humans weren't afraid to experiment with different types of seafood, and their culinary prowess extended far beyond what we might expect. So the next time you enjoy a nice plate of shrimp or a juicy piece of grilled fish, remember that your ancestors were eating similar dishes thousands of years ago. Ancient humans were masters of the sea, using their ingenuity and resourcefulness to create a diet that was both nutritious and delicious. Who knew that ancient humans were such seafood connoisseurs? While we've talked about all the crazy animals ancient humans ate, let's not forget about the plants that were a crucial part of their diets. Back in the day, when ancient humans roamed the earth, they were masters of the forest and fields, knowing exactly which plants to pick for a tasty and nutritious meal. Fruits were a natural choice, with their sweet flavors and vibrant colors. Ripe berries, like raspberries and blackberries, were a refreshing treat, kinda like ancient versions of candy, but all natural. Nuts and seeds were also a staple. Acorns, which might seem bitter and unappetizing to us, were a valuable source of energy for ancient humans. They would soak them in water to remove the tannins, making them more palatable. Hazelnuts and pine nuts, which we now enjoy in fancy dishes, were likely a common snack for our ancestors. And let's not forget about roots and tubers. Plants like yams and taro provided a starchy and filling meal, similar to how we might enjoy potatoes today. Ancient humans would dig these up with sharp sticks and stones, and then roast them over an open fire for a delicious and hearty meal. But it wasn't just the obvious plants that ancient humans ate. They also consumed a variety of leaves, stems, and flowers. Dandelion leaves, which we might see as a pesky weed, were a nutritious and bitter addition to their diets. Nettles, despite their stinging hairs, were also enjoyed once cooked, providing a unique flavor and texture. So the next time you bite into a juicy apple or enjoy a handful of nuts, remember that your ancestors were doing the same thing thousands of years ago. Ancient humans had a deep understanding and appreciation for the plants around them, using their knowledge and skills to create a diverse and sustainable diet. Who knew that ancient humans were such plant experts? When it comes to the diets of ancient humans, one of the most intriguing and controversial topics is cannibalism. For a long time, the question of whether our ancestors engaged in this practice has puzzled scientists and intrigued the public alike. The evidence for cannibalism among ancient humans is both intriguing and unsettling. Take the case of the Peking man. German anthropologist Franz Weidenreich noticed something peculiar about the skull remains of these ancient hominids. The top bones showed multiple signs of being chipped and broken, almost as if they had been struck with sharp objects. Additionally, the skeletal remains found at Zhoukoudian had an unusual ratio of head bones to limb bones, suggesting that something unusual might have happened to the skulls. Elsewhere, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of cannibalism in various parts of the world. In Croatia, the United States, France, and Spain, among other places, they've discovered human bones and skulls with cut marks, fractures, and signs of burning, indicating that the flesh had been removed and cooked. These findings suggest that cannibalism was not just an isolated incident, but might have been a more widespread practice in certain ancient human societies. So, what could have driven ancient humans to engage in cannibalism? One possibility is survival. In times of extreme famine or hardship, when food was scarce, our ancestors might have resorted to eating the flesh of their fellow humans as a desperate measure to stay alive. This is similar to the situations we've seen in modern times, such as with shipwreck survivors or stranded explorers. Another potential reason could be related to cultural or ritual practices. In some ancient societies, consuming the flesh of enemies or esteemed members of the community might have been seen as a way to absorb their strength or spirit. This could have been a part of burial or ceremonial rituals, where the body was treated with reverence, and the act of eating was symbolic, rather than just about nourishment. There's also the possibility that cannibalism was related to territorial conflicts or warfare. In battles between groups, the victorious side might have eaten the defeated as a way to strike fear into potential enemies or to symbolize their dominance. This practice has been observed in some historical and prehistoric societies. While the evidence for cannibalism among ancient humans is compelling, it's important to remember that we can't fully understand their motivations without the context of their cultures and societies. Cannibalism was likely a complex and multifaceted behavior, shaped by a variety of factors, and it's up to us to continue exploring and understanding this fascinating, if unsettling, aspect of our ancient past. The transition from eating raw food to cooking it was a monumental step in the evolution of ancient human diets. Before the discovery of fire, our ancestors survived on a diet of raw plants, insects, and wild animals, just like many animals in the wild raw food. While nutritious, is not always the easiest to digest, and it can carry pathogens and parasites that pose health risks. The introduction of cooking changed all that. The use of fire for cooking dates back to at least 780,000 years ago, when early humans began to harness this powerful element. Cooking had numerous benefits. It made food more digestible by breaking down complex molecules and proteins, making it easier for the body to absorb nutrients. This meant that ancient humans could get more energy and nutrients from the same amount of food, which was crucial for survival in harsh environments. Cooked food was also safer to eat. Heating killed harmful bacteria and parasites, reducing the risk of illness and disease. This improved the overall health and longevity of ancient humans, allowing them to thrive and reproduce more successfully. The social aspect of cooking should not be overlooked either. Gathering around a fire to cook and eat created a sense of community and shared experience. It was a time for storytelling, social bonding, and cultural exchange, strengthening the bonds between individuals and groups. Cooking also opened up new culinary possibilities. Ancient humans could experiment with different flavors and textures by cooking their food in the various ways. Roasting, boiling, and grilling each offered unique tastes and sensations, making meals more enjoyable and diverse. The transition from a raw diet to cooked food was a pivotal moment in human history. It not only the biting cold, and a whole lot of nothing. It not only improved the quality of life for ancient humans, but also played a significant role in their physical and cognitive development, paving the way for the complex societies and cultures we see today. So the next time you sit down to enjoy a cooked meal, remember that you're part of a long tradition that stretches back to the earliest days of humanity when our ancestors first discovered the transformative power of fire. The diet of ancient humans had a profound impact on their physical evolution, with particularly significant changes occurring in the brain and teeth. In the long river of human evolution, the increase in brain size has been closely linked to dietary changes. Starting from our earliest human ancestors, in order to obtain a wider variety of foods, ancient humans had to engage in more complex thinking and actions. For example, when searching for and gathering plant-based foods, they needed to remember the growth levels and distribution locations of different plants. When hunting wild animals, they had to employ strategies and rely on teamwork. These intellectual demands drove the continuous evolution of the brain, enabling it to adapt to increasingly complex survival needs. Archaeologists have found that over time, the brain size of ancient humans gradually increased, from the relatively small brains of early hominids to the larger brains of Homo sapiens. This evolutionary change was closely associated with the diversification of diets and the increasing complexity of food-gathering methods. The consumption of meat also provided crucial nutritional support for brain development. Meat is rich in proteins and fats, especially omega-3 fatty acids, nutrients that are essential for the growth of brain cells and the development of the nervous system. Diet also had a significant impact on the teeth of ancient humans. During the period when their diet consisted primarily of coarse plant-based foods, human teeth were robust and possessed powerful chewing capabilities, enabling them to grind tough plant fibers. As the proportion of meat in the diet increased, the shape and function of the teeth began to change as well. Since meat is relatively easy to chew and does not require the prolonged grinding needed for plant foods, the teeth of ancient humans gradually became smaller and more refined. Moreover, the emergence of cooking techniques further softened food, reducing tooth wear and allowing dental structures and functions to be better preserved. This shift also influenced the morphology of the jawbones, causing them to gradually become smaller and making room for the further development of the brain. In short, the diet of ancient humans was one of the key driving forces behind their physical evolution. By changing the types of food they consumed and the ways in which they obtained it, ancient humans continuously adapted to their environment. During this process, bodily features such as the brain and teeth gradually evolved, laying the physiological foundation for further human development. Diet is not only a fundamental necessity for ancient humans to sustain their survival, but it has also had a profound impact on social development by facilitating group communication and cultural transmission. In ancient times, obtaining food was the primary task for group survival, making diet an important bond that fostered communication within the group. During hunting activities, early humans had to divide labor and cooperate. Some were responsible for tracking prey, while others set ambushes and encircled their targets. This kind of collaboration not only strengthened communication and cooperation among group members, but also promoted the sharing of information and experience. After a successful hunt, the entire group would share the food together, a process that further deepened emotional bonds among members and forged strong social ties. The elders and experienced hunters in the group would also pass on hunting skills and knowledge about food preparation to younger members, thereby ensuring the transmission of survival skills across generations. Dietary practices also served as an important vehicle for the transmission of ancient human culture. In different regions, and among various groups, people developed distinctive dietary customs and cultural traditions. For example, in coastal areas, ancient humans relied heavily on seafood as their primary food source. They invented a wide variety of cooking methods and tools specifically designed for preparing seafood, and they even created myths and legends closely associated with marine delicacies. These culinary cultures not only enriched people's spiritual lives but also became significant markers of group identity. Through dietary customs passed down from generation to generation, ancient humans ensured that their cultural traditions continued unabated, allowing them to be preserved and transmitted throughout the long span of history. Diet also facilitated the division of labor and exchange within ancient human societies. With the advent of agriculture, people began cultivating crops and domesticating animals, which made food supplies more stable. Different groups started specializing in distinct odd production activities. Some became skilled at growing grains, while others excelled at raising livestock. To obtain a wider variety of foods, groups began engaging in exchange with one another. Such exchange not only promoted the circulation of goods, but also strengthened connections and communication among different groups. As exchange activities became increasingly frequent, the division of labor in ancient human societies grew ever more refined, and social structures became increasingly complex. In short, the diet of ancient humans had a comprehensive impact on their social development. From group communication and cultural transmission to social division of labor and exchange activities, diet played an indispensable role throughout, driving the continuous advancement of ancient human societies. The menus of ancient humans indeed concealed a wealth of bizarre foods that are nothing short of astonishing. In ancient times, food was hard to come by, and to survive, early humans were willing to eat just about anything. Small animals such as insects and snails were frequent sources of protein, almost like a modern-day survival challenge. Aquatic creatures including fish, shellfish, and crabs also played an important role in their diet, greatly enriching their meals. As for plant-based foods, in addition to common fruits and nuts, even bitter edibles like acorns, when properly processed, became valuable sources of energy. And the phenomenon of cannibalism is particularly shocking, revealing how deeply ingrained it was in certain ancient human societies. From analyses of bone, remains from Polish caves, conducted by Spanish scientists, to the peculiar markings on Peking man bones, all pointing to the possibility that cannibalism was not uncommon among some ancient human groups. These extraordinary foods together painted a unique culinary portrait of ancient humans, showcasing their remarkable survival wisdom and indomitable vitality in the face of harsh environmental conditions. Alright, now that we've talked so much about the diets of ancient humans, aren't you all bursting with curiosity and ideas? Why not jump into the conversation? If you could travel back to ancient times, which food would you choose to try? Would you dare to savor the unique flavor of insects? Or would you bravely confront the possibility of cannibalistic practices? Or perhaps you'd wonder, which outrageous dish from ancient times, once refined and adapted for modern tastes, could become a brand new culinary delight? And speaking of cannibalism in ancient societies, do you think it was purely driven by survival needs, or did it carry deeper cultural or ritualistic significance? From the evolution of ancient human diets, can you come up with any intriguing insights into today's food culture? For instance, do modern trends like health-conscious eating and vegetarianism echo some of the dietary philosophies of our ancient ancestors? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Let's explore together the mysteries of ancient human diets.